He's seventh grade. So we left off, and the mist maker has snuck out of the van, out of its container, and he got into the hotel, and now he's making mist everywhere. It's smoke! The room's full of smoke, shouted a girl in a glittery dress. No, it isn't. It's tear gas, yelled a bald man and put a napkin to his face. It's a terrorist bomb, cried a fat lady. Bruce was blundering around Raymond's chair, feeling for the boy. Perhaps he was hiding under the table, trying to get away from the creeping gas? Clutching his gun, he dived under the cloth. The mistmaker was upset by the ugly shrieking. He moved closer to the band, which was still playing. A good orchestra will play through thick and thin. Once more he gave himself up to the beauty of the music. Once more he sighed. But he was getting thinner now. He was no longer pillow-shaped. The whiteness that came from him was not so thick, and in a break in the mist a woman in trouser suit stood up and pointed. "Look, it's coming from that horrible thing," she screeched. "It's a poisonous rat! It's a rodent from outer space! It's got the plague! They do that. They give off fumes and they go mad and they bite you." The cries came from all over the room. A waiter rushed in with a fire extinguisher and squirted foam all over a group of Arabs in their splendid robes. One of the Astor's own guards had seized a walking stick and was banging on it on the floor. And now something happened which put the mistmaker's life in mortal danger. The band gave up. The music stopped, and with it the supply of mist which had helped to hide and shelter him. Suddenly cut off from the glorious sound, the little animal blinked and tried to come back to the real world. Then he began to run hither-thither through, looking for a way back. And Doreen Trout reached for her knitting bag. In the artist's dressing room, Gertie had climbed out of the cake. She had a bruise on her shoulder where Raymond's chin had hit her, but she was being brave. The prince looked crumpled, but his breathing was steady. Only a few minutes now, and he'd be stretched out in the van where she could make him comfortable. "I bopped well?" asked Hans, who followed her into the dressing room. "You bopped beautifully," said Gertie. The troll came out of the toilet and opened the double bass case. "I'll take the feet," he said, and Hans nodded and went to Raymond's shoulders. Everything was going according to plan. It was at that moment that the door to the fire escape burst open, and Ben, ashen-faced and frantic, rushed into the room. "The mistmaker's escaped," he said. "He's in the dining room. They're going mad in there. They're going to kill him." "No!" Hans let go of Raymond, who fell back into the cake. "Our duty is to the prince. You must not go." But Ben didn't even hear him. Before the ogre could move to stop him, he reached the other door and was gone. In the dining room, everyone was shrieking and joining in the hunt for the dangerous rodent from outer space. The Arabs, whose robes had been squirted with foam, were yelling at the waiter. A lady had fainted and fallen into her apple pie. "There he is," screamed the woman, "behind the trolley," and Bruce aimed, fired, and hit a bottle of champagne, which exploded into smithereens. The mistmaker was terrified now. The shrieks and the thumps beat on his ears like hammer blows. His head was spinning, and he ran in circles, trying to find a way out. "He's got rabies," yelled the fat woman. "That's how you tell they go round and round like that." "If he bites you, you're finished," shouted the red-faced man. "Get on a table. He'll go for your ankles." The fat lady did just that, and the table broke, sending her crashing to the ground. "Don't let him get me," she screamed. "Squash him, finish him." Bruce had seized the chair and was holding it above his head as he stalked the desperate little beast. Now he brought it down with a thump, and one leg came off and rolled away. "He's missed," moaned the woman on the floor. Once again Bruce raised the chair, once again he brought it down, and once again he missed. Doreen Trout had not screamed, she had not thumped, she had not picked up any heavy chairs or reached for her gun. All she had done was take out her favorite knitting needle. It was a sock needle of the finest steel and sharper than any rapier. She had judged its length and would skewer the animal neatly without any waste. "Get out of the way, oaf," she hissed at her brother. "I'm dealing with this. Just corner him." This was easier said than done. The mist-maker, caught in the nightmare, scuttled between the tables, vanished into patches of whiteness, skittered on the foam, but his enemies were gathering. The saxophone player had jumped down from the bandstand and shooed him against the wall. A waiter with a broom handle blocked him as he tried to dive behind the curtains. And now he was cornered. His eyes huge with fears, he sat trembling and waited for what was to come. "Stand back," said Doreen to the crowd, and began to move slowly towards the terrified animal. "Come on, my pretty," she cooed. "Come to your mummy. Come and see what I've got for you." The room fell silent. Everyone was watching Doreen Trout holding her needle as she moved closer, and all the time talking in a coaxing, wheedling voice. The mist-maker's whiskers twitched. He blinked. The delicate ears became flushed. There was a low voice, a kind voice. He turned his head this way and that, listening. "I've got lovely things for you in my bag. Carrots, lettuce." More than anything, the desperate creature wanted kindness. Should he risk it? He took a few steps towards her, paused, and sat up on his haunches. Then suddenly he made up his mind, and in a movement of trust he turned over on his back with his paws in the air as he had done so often when he was playing with Ben and Odge. He knew what came next, that moment when they scratched him so soothingly and deliciously all down his front. Soft parts Doreen looked down at the rounded, unprotected stomach of the little beast, at the pink skin still showing where his grown-up fur had not yet come. She smiled and raised her arm. The next second she lay sprawled on the floor. A boy had come from nowhere and leapt at her, fastening his arms around her throat. "You murderess! I'll kill you if you harm him!" shouted Ben. The attack was so sudden that Doreen dropped her needle, which quivered point down into the carpet. Scratching and spitting, she tried to shake Ben off while her free hand crawled like a spider towards the embedded needle. "Get the boy, idiot!" she spluttered at Bruce, but that was easier said than done. Every time it looked as though he could get a shot at Ben, some bit of Doreen got in the way. Anyway, his sister was sure to win. The boy fought like a maniac, but he was half her size, and her hand was almost on the needle. Now she was clawing at his face, and as he pushed her away and tried to free himself, his arm was clear of Doreen's body. Blowing a hole in the boy's arm was better than nothing, and carefully Bruce lifted his gun and aimed at Ben. The next second he staggered back, reeling, while pieces of splintered wood rained down on his shoulders. The double bass player had gone mad and hit him on the head with his instrument. Except that the real double bass player was up on the bandstand, with his hand to his mouth, staring down at the man who seemed to be him. But Doreen's crawling fingers had reached the needle, pulled it out, holding the glittering steel above Ben's throat. She brought it down in a single violent thrust, just as Ben, with superhuman effort, rolled out of her grasp. "Ow! Help, God!" Bruce clutched his foot, hopped, tried to pull the needle out of his shoe. Maddened by pain, half stunned by the blow the troll had given him, he seized a brass table lamp. Ben had turned, trying to catch the mistmaker. He had no time to dodge, no time to save himself. The base of the heavy lamp came down on his skull in a single crushing blow, and as the blood gushed from the wound, he fell unconscious to the ground. "He's dead!" screamed the woman. "I hope so," said Doreen softly. "But if not," she pulled the needle out of her brother's shoe and knelt down beside Ben, searching for the soft hollow beneath his ear. But then something terrifying happened. As she bent over the boy, she was suddenly pushed back as if by an invisible hand, pushed back so hard that she fell against the plate glass window, which broke with a crash. It was incredible, but they could all see it. Slowly, gently, the wounded boy rose into the air. Higher he rose and higher. Blood still trickled from his scalp. He lay with one arm dangling and his head thrown back. Lay in the air, unsupported, and clearly visible above the mist. "He's going to heaven!" cried someone. "He's been called up to paradise!" And that was how it looked to everyone there. They had seen pictures of saints and martyrs who could do that, levitate or lift themselves up and lie there in the clouds. But that wasn't the end of it. Now the boy who had to be dead began to float slowly, gently away, high over everyone's head until he vanished through the door. And we'll stop at chapter 16. Does Ben survive?